Wind it up? Okay. Good evening, everybody, here in the library and out there in Zoom land. I'd like to thank the library for having me in tonight to share this information with you. And that's really what I want to do in the short time we have, is basically share some information with you and raise your legal consciousness in the area of some basic estate planning. Three little areas I want to focus on tonight. I'm going to break it up. One is a little bit about, very briefly, estate and gift taxes, just so you know what the numbers are, and nobody's got to worry about anything. Then I want to talk about some legal documents we should have, the basics. All right. And lastly, in the time we have remaining, I want to talk about protecting that nest egg from the cost of long-term care, either at home or, God forbid, in a nursing home. I hope you're all familiar with Ben Franklin, right? You know who he is? He's on the $100 bill. It's all about the bennies. Well, Ben Franklin is sitting there writing a letter one day. And in that letter to a friend of his, he says, "Nothing in this world can be said to be certain except death and taxes," of course. So somebody scratched their head and figured out, you know what? Dying is a taxable event. It is. If you die and leave more than a certain amount of property, the government gets to tax you on it. And really, that's what I like to call trickle-down economics. They changed the tax laws to benefit the 1% guys, and we all benefit from it. Now, you know we have a dual tax system, right? When you file your taxes, you have Uncle Sam and the feds on the one hand, and you have the state of New York on the other, right? You live here? Okay, very simple. Now, the feds are very generous. The feds say you can pass away. You can die with, nice number, $11.7 million in your estate. 11.7 million and not pay any estate tax. None.
Can I ask you a question? What constitutes your estate?
Okay, what constitutes your estate? Basically, everything you own. House, bank accounts, stocks and bonds, investments, second home, boat, car. This is America, all right? And the better you've done, the more assets you've accumulated, the more important this planning becomes, all right? Because what's going to happen is you see on the TV, Congress, matter of fact, on September 13th, just last month, September 13th, 2021, the House Ways and Means Committee released its plan to pay for, and you hear this number being thrown around all the time, 3.5 trillion. I can't relate to a million, let alone 3.5 trillion, the Build Back Better Act, all right? Which, of course, to do that, to fund it, they're going to have to change the tax code. And one of the ways they're going to make the rich pay for this, the 1% guys, that's why there's so much controversy going on, because it's the wealthy guys who contribute to the political campaign to the people in Congress, senators, representatives, all right? So this 11.7 million that the feds allow us, this Build Back Better Act wants to bring it down to 5 million. Go ahead, still lets me out, all right? So, you know, but the wealthy 1% guys have way more than 5 million. Matter of fact, they have way more than 11.7 million. But right now, as we speak, the feds say 11.7 million, you don't pay any federal estate tax, all right? Now, the state of New York is not so generous. The state of New York says you can die with 5.93 million. That's still not a bad number for most of us, all right, probably. Think about what you're worth. Now you start to add up the value of these assets. If they don't come to more than 5.93 million, you can die with those assets in your name, and your heirs are not going to pay any estate tax. So you don't have to worry about dying with the property. These are the numbers. But what if you give it away? All right, gift taxes. Now, if you're taking notes, write this down. Here in New York, there is no gift tax. There's none. All right? You can give it all away, not pay any gift tax to the state of New York. So if New York is out of the picture, who does that leave us with?
The feds.
The feds. And the feds, again, are very generous because they say you can give away during your lifetime, it is a lifetime exemption, 11.7 million. All right.
That kind of money in
Well, you and I don't.
real life.
All right. In real life, I suppose the past president. All right. I suppose Michael Bloomberg. All right. The mayor of the city of New York. There's a lot of wealthy people. Bill Gates. All right. Microsoft.
What about people like us then?
Yeah. But for everybody else, so you don't have to be worried about gift and estate taxes are not a consideration for 99%. All I'm going to say about it, nothing to worry about as far as that goes. All right. Your real worry is going to be down here, long-term care, when we talk to it. But you got to build a house first. Okay. So
So hold on a minute. So something happens to me and I die, and I want to leave my home, my IRA, my bank accounts, whatever, to my sisters. They're not going to add up to 5.93 million.
and they get it without any, your estate is not going to pay any estate tax,
Oh,
none whatsoever. All right. And of course, between spouses, it is unlimited.
right.
So you don't have to worry about that. It's cheaper to keep her or him, as the case may be. All right. But if you don't have a spouse, the sisters get it. As long as it doesn't top these numbers, you're fine. All right. My Powerball ticket the other night would have put me in that category, but I didn't win. So, all right. Now, I talk to older people every day. For the past, I've done this elder law stuff for 42 years. All right. And they all say to me, you know, they're all worried about what happens if they pass away. They don't consider, God forbid, I need long-term care. And that's the real risk for all of us. All right. I just turned 70 in August. Okay. But when I was 59, I went out and got a long-term care insurance policy to insure myself against that risk. All right. Otherwise, you're stuck with the Medicaid law or you're paying for it privately. And that's where you can watch that nest egg that you spent your whole life putting together go out the window to pay for the cost of long-term care, especially, God forbid, you wind up in a nursing home. Nursing home costs today are anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 a month. A month. All right. That's unsustainable. You're going to get Medicaid eligible real quick if you don't do something to protect this property. And that's where the basic planning comes in. There are 4 things, little things, each and every one of us should have. All right. And they are the following. 1, start with the last will and testament. God forbid you pass away. But more importantly, while you're alive, a document called a durable power of attorney. Number 3 is a healthcare proxy. And number 4, to complete this little hit parade, if you are so disposed, a document called a living will, which, by the way, it's got nothing to do with number 1 up here. All right. So just number 1, last will and testament. All right. Now, each and every one of us, before we pass on, we have the right to say whatever your nest egg is comprised of, whatever it consists of, you have the right to say who gets it and who doesn't. You can reach out from the grave and say, you get it and you don't. All right. So I recommend that's the starting point, the cornerstone. Yes, ma'am.
Is it important to say who doesn't or just who does?
Who does? And sometimes it's very important to say who doesn't,
Okay.
because if you have as family, and I've, like I said, I've done this for 42 years, you can cut people out of your will, you know, for whatever reason, A and B, one child you're estranged from, you feel different about it. One child is more successful than another. So you're going to leave less property to the successful one. People have different things. People cut. I had a situation where parents adopted a daughter, all right? Adopted a daughter, raised her. And what happened? She got caught up in a cult, all right? Wound up taking off, got involved with this cult. Parents came in and said, she's our adopted daughter. we're going to cut her out. All right. We're going to cut her out of that will until if she comes back and gets out of the cult, fine. If not, we're going to leave it to somebody else. Go ahead.
Okay, so if you have a will that says where the money does go to, why do you need to say who doesn't get it? Are there certain people who are entitled to your money?
Okay, here's what happens. Let's take, if you don't have a will and die, all right? Yeah. Lawyers, we give everything a fancy name. When you die without a will, it's called dying intestate, all right? Intestacy, all right? And then what we have is a little chart. We go to a chart. So if the person who died was survived by a spouse, the spouse gets it all. If the person who died was survived by a spouse and children, all right, it's split between the spouse and the children. If the person who died, let's say, was not survived by a spouse or children, we actually go up to parents. Is mom and dad alive? Okay, at that point. If mom and dad are not alive, they're predeceased, okay? We go down to brothers and sisters. All right, this is the chart. Now, if there are no brothers and sisters, and I've seen that, people are living longer and longer, outlive their siblings, then we go down to nieces and nephews.
And that's automatic?
Automatic, without a will,
Got it.
intestacy. Now, after nieces and nephews, it's the state of New York.
Oh, no.
That's it. The state of New York got their hand in it, and they want it. Again, it goes to the state. Not much you can do about it. So rather than, you know, I want the opportunity. I have it. I want to see who gets this property while I'm alive. And that's where the last will and testament comes on. Now, a lot of times in the past, as I've done these lectures, somebody in the audience will raise their hand. Look, my wife and I have been married for 50 years. Everything we own is jointly held. Husband and wife, house, bank accounts. If one of us dies, it all belongs to the survivor. And that's absolutely true. No problem there. My question is twofold. Number one, what if you go in a common disaster? All right? That type of thing. You're on your way to 7-Eleven and bang, you get hit by a milk truck. All right? The second one always gets the spouse. Because what happens is, suppose you're on your way, you're coming home from work. All right? Your spouse is home making dinner, and all of a sudden you get in a car accident and you're killed. All right? You get run over by a oil truck or something. Every day it happens out there on the expressway and Sunrise Highway. You know it. All right? The Oakdale merge. But in any event, now you're gone. The law says that your spouse, your wife, your husband, they have a lawsuit for what they call wrongful death. They can sue on your behalf for economic damages. All right? So let's say the spouse recovers $500,000, $1 million. If they had a simple will, if the husband had a simple will that says, I leave everything to my wife, she gets the entire million. But if he died intestate and has some kids, all right, the wife doesn't get it all. The wife gets 50,000 plus a half, and the other half goes to the kids. And when they hear that, say, wait a minute, I'll give the kids their share when I'm ready. They're not getting it now. I need that money. So a simple will solves that problem. All right. And lastly, the last thing I'm going to tell you about wills very simply is this. A lot of times people have children or grandchildren that are under 18 years of age or even 18 years of age. All right. All of a sudden, if I'm 18 years old and I'm in college and I inherit $250,000 from my grandmother, all right, all of a sudden college may be on the back burner. You know, I want the red Corvette type of thing. Changes. Or I'm on all kinds of academic scholarships at the college. I got FAFSA money, all right, that type of thing. All of a sudden you lose that type of thing. So what we do in the last will and testament, there's two little, we call them trusts, actually sub-trusts that we put in the will. One is called a minority trust, which means if anybody in that, anybody who's going to inherit under the will, if we hold on to the money until they're 25, 30, 35. all right? They get a third, a third, a third, because there's a world of difference between a 30-year-old head and a 21-year-old head, all right? I always say it's real easy spending somebody else's money. When you, mom and dad worked long and hard to put this nest egg together, and you just inherited it, all right? Number one, we call it a minority trust. You want to make sure that's in there. And the second type of little sub-trust you want is, God forbid, because nobody's got a crystal ball, we can't look into the future. God forbid somebody becomes disabled. Car accident, medical malpractice, you name it. If they inherit money and they're on public benefits like Medicaid, kiss the benefits goodbye. They now got to spend that money on their care until it's all gone. All right. So we put in what we call a little special needs trust. All right. Special needs trust, supplemental needs trust. We call them SNTs, SNTs. All right. Supplemental needs trust, which means under the will, you name a trustee, they hold on to the money, they can still get their Medicaid, and the money is used to enhance the quality of their life. If they're in a group home, you can buy them a big screen TV, Game Boy, whatever it happens to be. You enhance the quality of somebody's life. You can buy, it depends on how creative you can get. A van, if they're in a wheelchair, a handicap van, you can have it customized, all right? They have to go places, type of thing. Somebody, as a result of medical malpractice, let's say they developmentally disabled, they're only going to be as good as a 10 or a 12-year-old. Well, hey, they want to go to Disney World and they can't go by themselves. So you can use some of the money, buy some plane tickets, take them down at Disney World.
Do you pay taxes as that comes out of the trust?
No. No.
So,
Okay.
you said the name. Right. So let's say you were in a situation where you were going to school and it was getting paid for through FAST, I think you said, is that the word? Okay. And somebody could inherit. Do you do things to manipulate it so they don't get it in time so that it doesn't? Can you hold it back?
Well, that's exactly what the minority trust does. They hold on to the money till they're 25.
Okay, got it.
Now, the trustee has the discretion, okay, to say, all right, you graduated from college, now you want to get married, your mother would have paid for the wedding, so I'm going to take the money out of, and I'm going to pay for the wedding, type of thing, all right? Even though you're not 25 yet, okay? So the trustee has discretion.
And who is the trustee?
Oh, you name him. There's a person, obviously a trustee is, the law, we call them jeopardy category, we call them fiduciaries, people who are in a position of trust. Your executor is a fiduciary person you named in the will to run the show after you're gone. The person you name as a power of attorney. You have people who are legally accountable, all right? They're held to a standard. And your trustee is a person. And all the trustee is he's the guy who runs the trust.
Okay, so like, let's say they all die before I do.
Well, this is, you put your finger on a real problem. If you want to name people, one who you trust, who are younger than you, a lot of times it's younger siblings that you may have, all right, type of thing. But the less people you have, you got a small family, the more difficult the planning becomes. Sometimes it's a religious person, a clergyman, all right, type of thing. Somebody you trust. And I got good friends from college. We see each other all the time. Okay, do you trust them? Yeah, as far as I can throw them. Okay, that type of thing. So, but those two minority subtrusts and the special needs little subtrust, make sure they're in your will. Okay.
There's a question on the chat. It says, is it true that you have to leave something like $1 to someone you don't want to receive anything?
And the answer is no. You don't have to leave them. A lot of times, and here's the question. I have somebody I want to cut out of my will. Don't want this person sharing at all. Okay. Especially if they're a child type of thing. And that comes up a lot more frequently than you like to believe. So is it better to not mention them or mention them and specifically cut them out? And the answer is you mention them and specifically cut them out. Because if you don't mention them, that leaves the door open for them to come in and mount a will contest and say, hey, my brothers and sisters are in a conspiracy against me. I was always mom's favorite, like the Smothers Brothers, you know, you're always mom's favorite. And that's what they're trying to do, cut me out of the picture. So you specifically name them. I hereby have a daughter, Mary Jones, and choose to leave her nothing
No contest?
under this, my last will. That's specific.
Contest on the will?
Pardon me?
Would you specify no contest on the will?
Oh, yeah, there's a, in every will, lawyers like to throw Latin terms around all the time. All right. It's called an interorum clause, to strike terror. And what it means very simply is if you challenge this will, and even if you're successful, you're going to lose your benefit. So you think twice about that.
You
All
can
right.
Zero. I mean, if you're gonna contest it and you're getting nothing, then you have nothing to lose.
Yeah, but you're going to lose. Even if you're successful and overturn the will, gone.
Okay,
You
so
get,
what if people, what's the order of, like, let's say I die and everyone wants to leave money to is gone for some reason. What happens, I guess it goes to that tier that you were talking about.
Yeah, first children, the sisters,
Yeah.
the nieces and nephews.
Yeah,
And then
that's
the
what
state,
we
okay.
got it.
okay. All right.
Okay.
Any other questions on wills? I just, you know,
Just basically straight out, bank accounts, retirement accounts, anything that I could put my sister's names on there.
yeah.
Would that be part of the will?
No, those are good. First of all, anything you do with your property while you are alive overrides what you said in your will, because your will only goes into effect after you die. So if I have a house and I have two children, A and B, and under my will, I leave the house to A. But as I get older, A wants nothing to do with me. But B comes and says, you know what? I'll take care of you. Okay. So what happens? I decide while I'm alive to give my house to B. Okay. I die. Who gets my house? B. I did it while I was alive. All right. A's out of the question at that point. Okay. Anything you do with your property while you're alive overrides what you said in your will. Same as putting different people on the bank accounts. All right.
And then if people do die, oh gosh, I forget what's the last. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, not a problem. Pops back in, let me know. All right. Now, more importantly, while we're alive, okay, these documents, durable power of attorney. As competent individuals, we make choices for ourselves every day. We decide, you know, how our nest egg, whatever it consists of, how that nest egg is going to be managed, saved, invested, spent, given away, squandered, gambled away. We live and die by those decisions because we're in the driver's seat and we're calling the shots. All right. As far as legal and financial affairs, you can take it all out of the bank, go down to Atlantic City, put it on the red, and black comes up. What can I tell you? All right. You bet on the Yankees last night. You're in the losing column. All right. So that's fine while you're alive. Now, what happens? Nobody's got the crystal ball. What happens as we age? Accidents, aneurysms, Alzheimer's disease, all right, dementia. You know, I've seen it all, okay, in the 42 years I've been doing this. And so each, just like we name somebody to inherit, we can name somebody, all of us, that we trust. Bottom line, got to trust them. Give them the authority to stand in our shoes and protect that property. All right. And that's a real consideration. Protecting the property. Somebody you trust. You got to trust. That's the bottom line with this document. All right. Durable. What do we mean by durable? Durable simply means it survives incompetence. That's what we want it to do. Years ago, you had a power of attorney and the person became incompetent. It was void. That's not really what we wanted the document for. So now it's durable. You'll see right in there. This power of attorney shall not be affected by the subsequent disability or incompetence of the principal. The principal is the person who gave you that authority. You're the principal. You're authorizing somebody to be your agent. Step in your shoes, pay the mortgage, pay the bills, all right? God forbid I become incompetent and can't do it. And the question becomes, you have to be competent when you sign this thing. A lot of times in elder law, people wait too long. We had a situation about a month ago. Woman came in, actually, brother and sister came in. They wanted to get a power of attorney for their mother. Great. Who's our client? And that's the ethical question. Mom is now the client, believe it or not. So we made an appointment to have them bring mom in. And it was really heartbreaking because here's mom, 84 years old, has dementia, doesn't know who her son and her daughter is, sitting right next to her. Could not get a durable power of attorney. Mom was not competent to sign it. All right. So then you're stuck, God forbid. The only way you can act at that point without a durable power of attorney, you have to actually petition the court to be appointed somebody's guardian. Britney Spears, the conservatorship, guardian of the person, guardian of the property. All right. And who knows how much money she's sitting on. All right. Type of thing. But that's what happens. You're stuck with that kind of a proceeding. It is, and it's really, really expensive. So in your own financial best interest, when you go to the attorney, get a durable power of attorney. Okay? Survives incompetence. Couple of things you got to know about this form. Number one, you can put more than one person on this form. You can name co-agents. All right? And my only advice to you is if you're going to name co-agents, there's a spot you do a lot of initialing, or you used to do a lot of initialing. We have a new power of attorney form that just took effect June 15th of this year. The old one was horrendous, 16 pages long. This one, you only have to initial in 3 spots. You sign it before a notary, okay? And it requires 2 witnesses. The notary can be one of the witnesses, all right? A lot of times I'm the attorney they send out to the hospitals, the nursing homes, the assisted living centers to do this because these old people can't protect their property in a long-term care situation. And they got to sign for me, all right? And it gets very difficult. You know, and I know as you grow older, your manual dexterity, the ability to sign your name starts to go downhill, all right? And sometimes it gets a little hairy. The person's got to be able to sign, okay? And we need witnesses, and a lot of times they can't get witnesses, all right? You can't get a witness, so what does that mean? Well, in my age group, I have a lot of retired cops, firemen, postmen, so I call them up and I tell them, hey, put down your coffee, get out of your pajamas. I got something useful for you to do today. Come with me, be a witness on these documents for me, and I'll take you to lunch. All righty? So, power of attorney. So you can put more than one person.
Okay, now, exactly, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
There's substance use, you take care of your business, like paying the bills and what else?
Oh, okay. Move property around, protect it. All right. That's why the power of attorney form has got to be somebody you trust 110%. All right, with your life, because you're giving them the authority to move property around, even to themselves. God forbid you need long-term care, because if you don't let them move property to themselves, you're going to have to spend it at $15,000 to $20,000 a month in a nursing home. All right. So I trust you enough. Most of the time, it's the children, and the children, okay, the children have the authority to give the property to themselves. All right. They're not self-dealing, because they're going to get it anyway after you pass away. So we're giving it to them now, that type of thing. Or we put it into an irrevocable trust. We'll talk about that a little later on. Okay. Go ahead.
2 things. So if you set this up, can you put 2, 3 people, but not as co, but like if this one's gone, do this?
You can express, the form is that flexible. You can put them on as co's and say, I want them to act separately, so we only need one signature, or you can express a preference that the first person has to be unable or unwilling for the second person to step up. So whichever is easiest for you.
Because maybe somebody who might have been capable of it, maybe by the time you need them, they're not capable for some reason.
Correct.
you know?
Correct.
They're worse off than you are.
Yeah, yeah, that happens, believe me. Nobody's got that crystal ball. Shoot.
So we have like a database here at the library of like legal forms, and it's like power of attorney form. So like, are those like valid?
Well, here's what happens.
All the time, like, hey, can you print me a power of attorney form? And we're like, here you go. But like, is it like legit?
Be real careful, okay? Because what happens is every time they amend this power of attorney law, okay? It's called the General Obligations Law. General Obligations Law, Section 5-1501, all right? And it goes on for pages. It must be the current form. You can't use the old form.
Oh, even if you had one, you have to do it.
No. Okay. So you're talking about just handing out a blank form.
Yeah, it's like we printed on a database that's called like Yale Legal Forms or something like that.
Be real careful, all right? Just liability wise, okay? We gave you a form. Now, what you were talking about, very simply, is what were you talking about? Just
Well, like instead of like, let's say I had my brother, but then he's dead by the time, so instead of paying to redo it, do I just have like?
Oh,
okay,
I know what I was going to say.
Yeah.
If you have an old form, and a lot of them are floating around out there, people come into the office with the old form that I did for them 20 years ago. We've had several revisions since then. All right. So you want to have the up-to-date form. Absolutely.
How are you supposed to know there's a new version?
Well, was it executed prior to June 15th of 2021? That's the new form. That's when the new form became effective.
So in other words, people who went to attorneys before that they had that old thing, they need to update it because the old one's no longer valid even?
Well, not it's grandfathered in,
Okay.
but a lot of times the old form doesn't have the authority we need to move the money around.
They fine-tuned it.
Yeah, all you can do is write out checks to pay grandma's bills. You can't move the money to yourself to protect it.
Okay, does this have to do with that whole look back period too?
Well, I'm going to get to that. Hold that thought.
Okay.
All right, hold that thought.
Where do you keep these forms? Like, where should
Ah,
I keep my
good question. Where do you keep these forms? And the answer is wherever you keep your important papers. Okay. Now, we usually, in the practice in our office, we give the client 2 copies, 2 originals of every one of these documents. All right. So you can have a set somewhere else. You want to, I don't recommend the safety deposit box, but if you got 2 sets, fine, you put it in there, put the other one, you have a small fireproof safe. You have a tackle box in the bottom of the bureau drawer, right? Wherever you keep your important papers. My wife is always on me about that. After, where is this? Where is this? So I just leave it on her pillow. Put it wherever you like. All right, put it wherever you like. I'll find out sooner or later. Now, also, power of attorney. Power of attorney forms are state specific. Each state has their own form. So what I'm saying to you very simply, if you're sitting here in the library tonight or you're out there in Zoom land and you have property out of state, you have a timeshare in Disney, you have a condo in Boca Raton, down in Florida, a lot of the Florida, New York connection. If you own out of state property, make sure it's covered by an out of state durable power of attorney. Get that state's form. And our form and many of the other states' forms, they're so flexible, you can get them notarized in the state you're in. So people can come up from Florida, all right? They can sign the form type of thing, all righty? Very important. People don't give that a thought. We bought a timeshare somewhere. Well, in Florida, make sure you have a Florida durable power of attorney covered in case you got to switch it over.
And that's one of the reasons I haven't had a bill made. I'm kind of not sure if I'm staying in New York or not. I don't want to pay all this money to have all this done and then move back down to North Carolina. And that's where I have a bunch of.
Well, you pretty much, you know what your window of opportunity is. I would tell you, if you're going to North Carolina in the next 6 months,
I have no idea.
and you're fairly healthy? Okay, if you have no idea, and it's at this point, then I would say get them here in New York. All right?
That's a lot of money, isn't it? Like to have it done and then still live in North Carolina?
How much, well, here's what you have to weigh for yourself. Add up the value of your nest egg. What is it worth? House. Get a house nowadays in Suffolk County. I mean, houses, I grew up in Brentwood, all right? Houses are selling over there for $400,000, $500,000. I can't believe it. So for like 2,500 bucks, I would get the forms done. Yeah, that's, you know, that's bottom, that's it. All right. So these cover your property. These last two, healthcare proxy, living will, they have to do with healthcare decisions. All right. And again, each and every one of us, we make our own medical decisions. All right. Which is a nice ability to have, by the way. You can say, you know, I want this treatment. I don't want this treatment. Okay. I'll take this drug. I don't like the side effects on this particular prescription. The question becomes, what happens, again, if you lose the ability to make your medical decisions? That's the question you have to ask yourself tonight. If you lose the ability to make your medical decisions, who is going to make them for you according to what your wishes are? And that's where the healthcare proxy comes in. All a healthcare proxy is, by definition, it is a medical power of attorney form. Okay? It's a medical power of attorney. And what are you doing with it? I'm authorizing somebody, again, that I trust, who knows my wishes, which means what? Communication. All right? You got to be able to tell that person how you feel, especially about end of life decision making. That's crucial. It's critical. A lot of times I'll get a husband and wife in the office, and we're talking about this healthcare proxy. I'll say, all right, how many years you guys been married? The husband will say 52. And I'll look at the wife and say, yeah, you earn the right to pull his plug, all right, after 52 years of marriage. Goes with the territory. But that's what it covers. The healthcare proxy covers anything you could conceivably think of as a medical decision, A to Z. And that covers a lot of ground. If you start at A, unless they're cloning people and not telling us about it, probably in vitro fertilization, right up through and including withholding life-sustaining treatment. That's included in the authority of the healthcare proxy. The person whose name you put in that blank, you are giving them the legal authority to withhold life-sustaining treatment from you in an appropriate case. It's got to be an appropriate case. The person's got to be in a what they call a persistent vegetative state with no hope of recovery. And that's going to let somebody waltz in there and just pull the plug. It's not going to happen. All right. But a couple of things you got to know about the healthcare proxy. Show you the difference. I said the power of attorney form was state specific, right? Each state had their own form. Unlike that, the healthcare proxy is good in all 50 states, US territories, and possessions. Why? Because Congress said so. Back in 1991, long time ago, doesn't seem that way to me, but in 1991, Congress passed the Patient Self-Determination Act, the PSDA, and made healthcare proxies the law of the land. So New York will recognize a Florida healthcare proxy, California, Maine, Alaska, Hawaii, boom, okay? So, and also, remember the durable power of attorney? I said you can name co-agents, two people to act separately. You cannot do that in a healthcare proxy. Healthcare proxy, you have to express a preference. You have to say, all right, I want A as my primary proxy, and there's a spot on the form for B. B can only act if A will not, all right? Type of thing. So you got to be real careful, especially with children. You know who can pull the plug and who can't. Who do you make your healthcare proxy? I always say somebody with a little intestinal fortitude, somebody who's not going to go to pieces in a crisis, faint at the sight of blood. All right. You want somebody who can follow your wishes. That's the important thing. You got several children. You name one as your primary proxy. Something happens, you got to use the proxy. Look, I got to follow mom's wishes. I don't care what you guys want to do. That's your business. But mom didn't want to be kept alive like this, so I gotta honor her wishes. All right. When you need this thing, you will realize what the phrase "between a rock and a hard place" really means. All right. There's some really tough decision making going on. All right. And lastly, the fourth document to complete this little hit parade, it's a living will. All right. What is a living will? It's simply your decision to forego life-sustaining treatment. That's all it is. The living will is limited to life-sustaining treatment. Remember, the healthcare proxy covered anything you could think of as a medical decision. The living will says, look, you're not keeping me alive like some kind of scientific experiment here. If that's going to be the quality of my life, please disconnect this machinery, let this party come to an end, let me go naturally. And most people I ask, you want to go naturally? Absolutely. I don't want to be kept alive like that. Okay. Goes back to that Karen Ann Quinlan case. All right, 1976, a ways ago. It's the year I graduated from law school. All right. So, and by the way, when they disconnected Karen Ann Quinlan's life support systems, she lived for another 9 years before she passed away. Yeah, yeah. It's amazing. So these, the last will, power of attorney, healthcare proxy, living will, that's the basics. You need those. Got to have them. All right. Absolutely. Now, let's talk a little bit in the time we have remaining about long-term care. All right. Long-term care. Something I know a little bit about. All right. When you think about it, make it simple. There's only two places in this world you will ever need long-term care. Well, that's pretty simple. Where are you going to be? You're either going to be living at home in the community, either with somebody or independently. But if you are so sick you can't live in the community anymore, you will more than likely wind up in a nursing home. That's it. All right. And everybody wants to stay in the community. You don't want to be in a nursing home. But unfortunately, that happens. There are 41 nursing homes here in Suffolk County. 41. A couple of them right here in Patchogue. All right. And you know what they're full of? They're full of people who never intended to be there. Nobody gets up in the morning and says, hey, you know, today I'm going to a nursing home. All right. It happens through no fault of their own. All right. A medical event, aging event, dementia. All right. They wind up needing 24/7 care and they can't get it at home. So they have to be in a nursing home. All right. And that's where you want to be able to protect that nest egg. Okay. So before we get to the nursing homes, there's only two places you need it, as I said, either in the community. Now, how do you pay for long-term care? There's only three ways in our society to pay for long-term care. One, privately, from your nest egg, what you've saved up. Two, you either through good planning or no planning, you have now spent every last dime of that nest egg. You are now poor enough, put poor enough in quotes, poor enough to qualify for taxpayer medical care, which we call Medicaid. Not Medicare, Medicaid. Medicare is your age 65, old age health insurance. You get it when you're 65, all right? And Medicaid is needs-based, all right? You have to be poor enough to qualify for it. So when are you poor enough here in New York? Well, not necessarily. Here in New York, an individual, because we're always filing for Medicaid as an individual is poor enough when he or she has two things left to their name. Number one, you can have a bank account with this year with $15,900. $15,900 in what they call countable assets and resources. Money in the bank. By the way, the value of your home is not included. The fact that you're living in your home makes it a residence. It is an exempt asset. Okay? So you can have $15,900 in a bank account. And the second thing you can have is a prepaid funeral. Prepaid funeral. What the heck is that? Well, you can waltz in. I tell people this all the time. It's Medicaid time for mom. She needs a home health aide. She's going to be at home in the community. This is community Medicaid. All right. And she can have $15,900 and a prepaid funeral. So all you have to do is waltz in to whatever funeral home you choose. Okay. Maybe mom has a preference. And the funeral director will say to you, can I help you? And all you have to tell them is, look, it's Medicaid time for my mother. She needs a home health aide. and I need to set up a prepaid funeral. They'll know exactly what you're talking about because they do it every day. They do it every day. We give it a fancy name. We call it the pre-needs burial account. It's a prepaid funeral. Now, think about this. Most funerals, all right, here in New York, run anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000, depending on the box you pick out. Okay, so when you got 15,900 and you got a $15,000 funeral, New York considers you poor enough when you got what? You got about $30,000 left to your name. You don't have to spend every last dime. Okay, that 15.9 is exempt money. Medicaid can't touch it. Okay, and by the way, that's the same poor enough for both community Medicaid and nursing home Medicaid. All right, if you need a nursing home, you can still have those two things. Okay, now community Medicaid. Becoming poor enough. How do you become poor enough? It's like a chess game. Medicaid is like a chess game. Chess game is a game of strategies. You're moving pieces around on the chessboard. The pieces, the elder law lawyer moves, are the client's assets to protect them. All right? And if you move them soon enough, you get to protect them. Sometimes you come to the chessboard, client waited too long, didn't do the planning. Donor doesn't have the documents. We can't move anything around. All right, game over type of thing. So it's important to be able to do this planning as soon as you can while you're still competent. All right, so how do you become poor enough? Community Medicaid, rule number 1. There are no transfer rules. Let's start with that. No transfer. There's no 5-year look back period. That 5-year look back period that most people talk about only applies to nursing homes. Does not apply to community Medicaid. Now, let's talk about what happened. The previous governor, Andrew Cuomo, came along in 2020, a while ago, and said, all right, April 1 of 2020, I'm going to rein in this Medicaid budget here in New York. Previously, since 1989, there were no transfer rules. You needed community Medicaid and a home health aid, you could transfer everything you owned. They couldn't penalize you. No look back period. So Cuomo said, we got all these people on community Medicaid. We're an aging society. All right. Cuomo says, all right, I'm going to institute a transfer rule. For community Medicaid, come April 1 of 2020, we're going to have a 2.5-year look back period. 2.5. Nursing homes are 5. Community Medicaid, and it was like, whoa. So all of a sudden, people don't realize you get sick, you need a home health aid right away. And people have given gifts, all right? They've given property away, through no fault of their own, paid for weddings, paid college tuition, gave all kinds of gifts, birthday gifts, and they were stuck with these there were no transfer rules. Come April 1 of 20, what happened April 1, 2020? COVID came around. So what happened now is they threw that date out the window. And then it was supposed to be January of 2021. They threw that date out the window. Now it's supposed to be July 1 of 2022 when the 2.5-year rule comes in. But what else do we know? We have a different governor who has a different outlook on this. So we may not have any transfer rules. It'll still be like it used to be, no transfer rules. So it's up in the air until July 1 of 2022. All right. Right now, if you need a home health aid right now, you could transfer everything you own completely out. They can't penalize you because the rule is not in effect. The window is still open to protect that nest egg. Okay. That's community Medicaid. Now, no transfer rules. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2 for community Medicaid. Income. What comes in every month for most older people? Yeah, Social Security, pension, certainly any interest income, dividend income, bond income, trust income, rental income, gambling income. Some of these guys are pretty good at the track, all right? But for most senior citizens, Social Security and a pension or an IRA distribution, okay? This year, Whatever your income is, Medicaid will add up all the sources of your income. Whatever it comes to, bottom line, Medicaid says this year you get to keep $904 a month. That's what you get to keep. The balance of your income, the rest of that money, is called your Medicaid overage, the amount you're over. All right. Now, what happens to that money? Well, if you need a home health aid and you don't want to pay privately, all right, you can simply pay it to Medicaid. All right. But now we get that money back because what do most people do with their income? They live on it. That's what I need to pay my bills. So you're keeping $904. The balance of your income, you join a charity. This is rule number 3. You join a charity that runs what we call a pooled, P-O-O-L-E-D, pooled income trust. All right. This is the way you get back your money to live on. These are the strategies. No transfer rules. You're keeping $904 a month, and you join a charity that runs a pooled income trust. What is a pooled income trust? It is simply a special bank account that the charity runs, all right? And you take that extra money, the overage money, you send it to the charity. They put it in that special bank account, the pooled income trust, all right? And then what happens? You sit down and you send the charity your bills. What do? They get all your bills. You're assigned a caseworker. They get the bills. They pull out their checkbook. They open it up and they write out the checks. The charity writes out the checks to pay those bills. When you think about it, Medicaid does not trust you enough to pay your own bills. So by sending the money to these charities that run the pooled income trust, they'll let the charity pay it for you. And don't forget, you still have $904 to buy cigarettes, alcohol, ammunition. You know, doesn't make a difference. You can spend that money any way you like. The balance of the money goes for those bills. All right. And don't forget, Medicaid is not going to allow you to live beyond your means like you used to anymore. Okay. They'll pay credit card bills, that type of thing. They'll pay rent, mortgage, taxes, electric, utilities, all that neat stuff. They'll pay it. So you're keeping your 904. The balance of the money goes to the, and what does the charity get out of it? The charity gets a small administrative fee, depending on how big your Medicaid overage was. All right. But that's the way you stay at home and get Medicaid to pick up the tab for the home health aid. By the way, home health aids. Mom needs a home health aid. Why? Okay. If you have difficulty doing all the things we took for granted today, the ability to dress yourself, feed yourself, toilet yourself, what we call mobility, transference, getting up and out of a chair, in and out of the car, on and off the toilet, in and out of the tub, all right? Mobility, that type of thing, transference. And if you have difficulty, you fell down and broke a hip, all right? That's the easy one because you're still competent. Dementia, all right? Parkinson's disease, any number of what I call the parade of horribles that I see every day. Frontal lobe dementia, okay, it happens. All of a sudden, you can't dress yourself, you can't feed yourself, you can't toilet yourself without assistance. You are going to need, you want to stay at home, you are going to need a home health aide, all right, a person who's trained. Now, there are any number of home care agencies that you can go to out there, all right? And the doctor, all right, you take mom to the doctor says, yep, mom's got dementia, the onset of dementia, and she needs a home health aide. She can't dress herself, feed herself, toilet herself, whatever it happens to be. The doctor writes a prescription. You tell the home care agency, doctor wrote me a prescription for a home health aide. It's medically necessary. Great, not a problem. The question the home care agency is going to ask you is, how are you going to pay us? How are you going to pay us? So I said, there's only 3 ways to pay for long-term care: privately, Medicaid, long-term care insurance. Mom got long-term care insurance? No, she was too old, too sick, too costly. Great. Privately, what does a home health aide cost? Home health aides will cost you, here's the range, anywhere from $15 to $25 an hour, depending on who you hire, all right? How many hours a day? You're going to need them at least 6 to 10 hours a day if you want any quality of life. 4 hours a day is not going to cut it. 6 to 10 hours a day. How many days a week? At least 5, 6 if you want a day off. You try being a caregiver for somebody with dementia and see how quick you get burned out.
Yeah, but sometimes they send different people, these agencies, and they're not the same consistent people ever.
I love it when it's usually the son. The son will call us up and say, my mother needs a home health aide 24/7. Good luck trying to pay for that.
Yeah.
Take $20 an hour. All right, 20. What's a 10-hour day? That's $200. What's a 5-day week? That's $1,000. How many weeks in a year? $52,000, and you still have to cover the weekends. Good luck trying to have a life.
And they're still paying for the people in the house, the taxes, insurance, and utilities,
Yeah. So you want to get the fallback is you want to get Medicaid to pick up that tab ASAP, and you can transfer all the money out. All right. You get to keep $15,900 and the prepaid funeral, and Medicaid is paying for the home health aide. Wonderful. Now, what happens? And don't forget, if there's a spouse situation, the husband gets or the wife gets to keep their own income. We still have what we call the right of spousal refusal. All right. And not just on Friday nights. The right of spousal refusal is the right to keep that property and say, no, Medicaid, you can't have it. It's a written form that goes in, you sign it, the spouse signs it, boom, right of spousal refusal. Okay. So home health aides, not so much. Matter of fact, if you see the commercials on TV, there's a particular, what they call managed long-term care now. Managed long-term care agency, Freedom Care, where you can hire your own people. The mother hires the daughter,
Yeah.
right, to be a caregiver. That's a special program under Medicaid where Medicaid trains that person. And once they're trained, Medicaid will pay them and they're your caregiver. All right. We call that program CDPAP, CDPAP, PAP, Community Directed Personal Assistance Program. All right. If you don't like, people say, I don't want anybody coming in my house. Yeah, I'd rather wind up on the floor than have a home health aide, but it happens. You're dealing with these issues. And so if you can have somebody you want trained, then that's the program you want to look at. That's the ones you see the commercials for on TV, CDPAP. Okay. Now, God forbid you can't stay at home. And now you wind up in a nursing home. All right. Whether or not you need a nursing home is a medical call. All right. To qualify for a nursing home, you have to have a medical evaluation called a PRI. This elder law gets like all kinds of initials. PRI stands for Patient Review Instrument. There are nurses. Sometimes a person is sick, they're in the hospital. What you want to be able to tell the hospital social worker is, all right, my mom may need a nursing home. Can you have somebody, get used to the lingo here, work up a PRI and screen. They call it a PRI and screen on my mom. And if you remember, just like when you went to college, you took the SATs and your point score on the SATs determined whether or not you got into the college of your choice. All right. Your point score on the PRI determines whether or not, number one, you're nursing home material, and two, if you are, the amount of care you're going to need. All right. Because everything is needs based. We want to reimburse how much care you're going to need. So you need a PRI, number one. Number two, you got to find a bed. All right. So what happens is most of the time, the hospital, once they stabilize you, will ship that patient down the pike to a nursing home for what they call rehab. All right. Rehab. Now, under Medicare, not Medicaid, under Medicare, most people are eligible for a maximum of 100 days under Medicare. There's a breakdown in those days. Days 1 through 20, the first 20 days in that nursing home are fully paid for by Medicare. Not a dime comes out of mom's pocket. So what happens on day 21? On day 21, Medicare, remember this, Medicare is an insurance program, which means what? Premiums, deductibles, co-pays, and exclusions from coverage. So all of a sudden on day 21, Medicare says, hey, we're an insurance program. Okay, there's a copay here, and the current copay on day 21 in the nursing home is $185.50 a day. $185.50 for the next 80 days. All right.
From day 21 to day 100.
Day 100. All right. So you take 185.50 and times it by 80, and you will get $14,840. That's why people who have Medicare get A, hospital, B is the medical, and they get a supplemental policy to pick up either all or most of that copay. And then you got to have a drug plan.
I was gonna ask you if you have a supplemental, then they're gonna pick up 21 to 100.
Hopefully, as long as you're still responding to the rehab. Because don't forget, Medicare, some patients get to the point where they can't do it anymore and they're not progressing. And Medicare says, look, if you're not progressing, we're going to stop paying. All right. You're decertified. And there's strategies to deal with that. Okay. But that's why most long-term care insurance policies, and I have one, the first 90 days, there's a 90-day deductible because you're eligible for the 100 days under Medicare. All right. And then the policy starts paying.
Wait, did you say that sentence again, please?
Sure. Most long-term care insurance policies have a 90-day deductible, 3 months, because Medicare gives you a maximum of 100 days.
Okay, so it doesn't come out of your pocket then.
Right. Right.
Got it.
Okay.
And then from that day 21 to 100, that's where this comes in the
Your supplemental insurance will cover the days 21 through 100, the 185.50.
So if you don't have supplemental, you have to come with $185, and a lot of people go to the hospital for more.
You know what? I worked for legal aid for 30 years. Okay. I have turned 65. I got A. I got B. So legal aid, we had what they call night shift, New York State Health Insurance Program, New York Health Insurance Program, night shift. Okay. Teachers have it. It's a Cadillac program as long as you don't need long-term care. Because if you go into a nursing home and need rehab, night shift pays $0. So you're on the hook for the 185.50.
Okay, excuse me. So usually you're in the hospital and you go to rehab, then you go to a nursing home.
Yeah. Well, usually the rehab is in a nursing home.
Okay.
Most nursing homes have a rehab section and they have a long-term care section. Okay, that type of thing. So
I just want to be done before I get there.
yeah, really, you know. I hear you. I've been in all 41 nursing homes in this county, Nassau County.
And honest to God, for people who like, this is tough, like, you know, whatever, and I'm running a business and stuff, so like, got a little bit of sense as far as numbers and stuff. But could they possibly make this any more confusing? Like,
Well,
why don't they just come up with a straight up program? Like,
Here-
how much
here-
goes
here-
on this whole hole and all that stuff? Just something that's understandable. Because when I had my mom with the donut hole thing, that could drive the caretakers right over the edge.
my wife is in a donut hole right now. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Based on the drugs eye drops she takes for macular degeneration type stuff. All right. And that's Medicare. That's the drug program. By the way, the drug program for Medicare went into effect in 2006. All right. It was written by Congress and the drug companies, Big Pharma. There was no input from any consumers at all. They knew where their money was in these drugs, and that's what the donut hole is all about. All right. And you go home and you Google donut hole under Medicare, and you read about it.
Nightmare.
Okay.
And like for people who maybe are simple, you know, like, you know, maybe people aren't cognitively good, you know.
Here you are at a
That's
stage.
torture. This is torture.
Here you are at a stage in your life. You're elderly. You got some ailments, some medical conditions. This is the last thing you need to deal with is these explanation of benefits, these, you know, what you paid before you're in the donut hole, year-to-date summaries.
Oh, it's torture.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree with you.
just doing the homework on it and understanding what happens on it and, you know, whatever.
By the way, one of the benefits of the Affordable Care Act
Mhm.
was we're supposed to shrink that donut hole.
Yeah, but it didn't.
It did.
Yeah, it didn't. Believe me, I kept my eye on that because, yeah.
Again, I always say, go back to Medicare is a statute. It's a federal statute. It's a creature of Congress. Who contributes to the congressmen, the representatives, and the senators. Not the senior citizen, drug companies, insurance companies, big lobbies. That's how you petition this government, all right? Occupy Wall Street, they're locking everybody up, but you know, you can hire a multi-million-dollar lobbyist to lobby for you. That's how you petition. All right, now, qualifying for Medicaid for a nursing home, all right, because that's the one, nursing homes cost you $15,000 to $20,000 a month. It's unsustainable, all right? So how do you become eligible for Medicaid if you need a nursing home? And here's the answer. The easiest way to become Medicaid eligible if you need a nursing home is to be married, is to have a spouse. It's cheaper to keep her, or him, as the case may be. Why? Believe it or not, and don't forget, I've done this for 42. The Medicaid law here in New York is very, very generous to married people. It's extremely generous. Okay, well, there's a strategy. I'll give it to you in a minute. And what if you're not married?
Being married for Medicare eligibility, Medicaid eligibility, you know?
I'll tell you, if you're not married, don't run out and get married. All right? The cure is worse than the disease. Don't do that. Okay? There's other ways, and I'm going to tell you in the time we have left here. So for married people, really rule number one, there is no 5-year look back period on the transfer of assets between spouses. None. Assets are freely transferable. Okay? Not to children, spouses. So husband, wife, husband's going in the nursing home. I tell the wife, everything you guys own in your name. She says to me, that's great. I can move all the bank accounts because they're joint, him and I can move them all in my name. What about our house, the largest asset we own? We bought it 50 years ago. It's in both names. He's a stroke victim. He can't sign his name. How do we get his signature on the deed? Any clue?
Power of attorney.
A plus. If they had the foresight to have powers of attorney and authorize each, we don't even need him.
I was gonna say biometrics.
Oh. She signs her name to the deed, and using the power of attorney, she has been legally authorized to sign his name to the deed, putting the house in her name. Not a problem. I kid you not. Get this document. Don't fool around. You save your house. Okay. So wife's got rule number one, no 5-year look back. By the way, where'd that 5-year look back come from? All right. When you're applying for Medicaid, you're saying to the Social Services Department here in New York, Suffolk County, I am poor enough. All I have left is $15,900 in the bank, and I got a prepaid funeral. Here's the receipt. Okay. So Medicaid says, since this is a nursing home that costs between $15,000 and $20,000, we're not going to take your word for it. We have the right to go back 5 years into your financial past. This happened with the Deficit Reduction Act of 2005. So they changed it from a 3-year look back to a 5-year look back. Now it's 5 years for everything. So they go back 5 years into your financial past. And I got to tell you, they're very good at what they do. The people over at the Social Services Department, they do this every day. Okay? They do this every day. They know what to look for, type of thing. All right? And they're going to find transfers. What they'll do is they'll go back to 5 years, bank accounts, checking accounts, IRA accounts, you name it. Anything, assets you had your name on, they want to see. And what they will do is they'll add up all the money you gave away within those 5 years. All right, they'll add it up because they'll see withdrawals from bank accounts. All right, they want to know what it is. What's this $3,500 withdrawal? Well, here's the bill for $3,500. I need a boiler on the house. Great, that flies. All right, we bought a new car. That flies. Anything you buy for yourself, we took a cruise. That flies. Okay, but you start giving it away to people other than a spouse, you got a problem. They'll add it all up. They'll divide it by a little number, and they'll come up with what they call a penalty period. You are ineligible for Medicaid based on and all it is, simple. Remember 3rd grade division? Numerator over the denominator equals a quotient, right? N over D equals Q. The numerator, when they add up all that money you gave away, that's N. they divide it by D, which is the regional rate. They call them, right now, this year, that's why I brought these notes. The regional rate for Long Island happens to be $13,834. That's supposed to be the private pay rate in a nursing home. We know the private pay rate is from 15 to 20,000, but that's the number Medicaid uses. So suppose, and here's the example, suppose I gave away $100,000 within the last 5 years, and now I need a nursing home. They'll take the 100,000, they'll divide it by 13,834, and I come up with 7.22 months. So I am ineligible for Medicaid for the next 7.22 months, okay? And that's, I'll be denied Medicaid. But if it all went to my wife, not a problem.
So it's only if you're married that power of attorney works. If you're married only, you can't have power of attorney and put the house over to them.
Yeah, now, if you're gonna transfer your house to somebody else, and you don't have a spouse, here's another one. Sometimes there's a disabled child, all right? Disabled child. He can be 47 years old, be a New York City fireman, fell down a flight of stairs, now he's disabled, he can't work, but he's competent. So you can have a disabled child. There is no limit or type of property, the amount or type, real or personal property, that you can transfer to a disabled child, okay? There's no 5-year look-back period if the property goes to a disabled child. So if there's 6 kids, for example, 6 kids, and one of them is disabled, getting Social Security disability, that's the bell ringer, all right? Mom transfers the house to that child, and then that child transfers the house to him or her and the rest of their siblings, okay? So nobody, if I transfer the house directly to the siblings, all of them, I got a 5-year waiting period. But by using the disabled child, it's like a conduit to pass out property. It's wonderful, okay? So I sometimes say, do yourself a favor, go out and adopt a disabled child, okay? You know, otherwise you're stuck with the 5-year look-back period. Now, what if you don't have a spouse?
Yeah.
Okay, as I say, don't run out and get married. The cure is worse than the disease. Boom. Out of the frying pan, into the fire. So what are your options if you need a nursing home and you don't have a spouse? Well, you can give it all away and wait the 5 years and pauperize yourself. That doesn't sound like a good idea. So really, today, the gold standard as far as estate planning goes, and it's really for spouses and people without spouses, is what we call you got it, the irrevocable trust. And that scares the daylights out of people because it's irrevocable, all right? All this thing is, how's your artwork these days, all right? All this thing is, an irrevocable trust is nothing more than a lockbox. That's all it is. It is a legal lockbox. And what are you going to put in this box? Property I'd like to protect. God forbid I need long-term care and Medicaid. So let's start. What do you want to put in the box? Can I put my house in the box? Hey, sure. Throw the house in the box. Can I put the vacation home in the box? Yeah, I put the vacation home in the box. Can I put money in the box? Sure. Stocks, bonds, whatever you like. Okay. Now, a couple of things you got to know about this box. Number one, it's your lockbox. You can't stick your hand in the box. By the way, again, lawyers, we give everybody a fancy name. Since it's your lockbox, we call you S, the settlor, like the people who settle the West, S-E-T-T-L-O-R, settlor. It's your lockbox. You can't stick your hand in the box. Somebody has to have the keys to this box, and you choose who has the keys. The people with the keys are called your trustees. All right, trustees. So we got 2 trustees, no more than 2, because it gets too unwieldy. You can have a primary, you can have a secondary, you can have 2 of them as joint, primary and secondary trustees, all right? They have the keys to the box. And by the way, this money you put in the box, it's generating what? Income. You still get the income. Nothing changes.
Outside of the box, you get the income.
You get the income that the money is generated, the money market, the stock or bond or whatever it is. You get the dividend, whatever it happens to be. Of course, you throw the house in there, the house doesn't generate anything. Just sits there. All right. Now, let's say this particular said law. He's got 4 kids, A, B, C, and D. All right. And he says, all right, A and B, you guys are my trustees. You got the keys to the box. Simple as that. Now, once you put the property in the box, you start the 5-year clock running. Because you have now transferred your property to another entity. Okay? It's in the name of the trustees. The kids don't own it. The trust owns it. Okay? On your behalf. So it sits there and the 5-year clock starts to run. All right. Now, what happens at the end of 5 years? At the end of 5 years, anything you put in this box is totally protected from Medicaid. They can't touch it because you just sat out the 5-year penalty. All right. Okay. You're still living in the house. You get all your tax exemptions. All right. You have essentially a life estate in the house. Okay.
But that's not-
You pay all the taxes, the electric, the maintenance, nothing changes other than you put it in the box, okay? So now what happens? Now that once the 5 years is up, now you can get your hands on the money, but not directly. That's important, all right? If I put all this property in the box, this money, and I could take it out, stick my hand in the box, what would Medicaid say? Pay for your own nursing home, all right? So if I need money, the kids, I get it out through the kids. They have the right to invade the property after 5 years. They have the right to go in. So if I want to go on a cruise at the end of 5 years, S says to A and B, whoever he chooses, dip into the box, take out 50 grand. Don't give it back to me. I don't want it. I just spent 5 years waiting for it. Go buy me a ticket on the Queen Mary. Your mother and I, we want to go on a round the world cruise. Okay. They buy stuff for you. They can pay my property taxes. All right. If my house needs to be roofed and sided, I tell the kids, dip in, take out the 50 grand, go hire a contractor, have them roof inside the house. Because when I die, you guys are going to inherit that house right out of the trust, and it's going to be worth it to you. All right. Not going to be the rundown shack I'm living in now. Okay. So there's a lot of flexibility here. And here's the ultimate revenge. The ultimate revenge. You got this whole thing set up. Matter of fact, if you want to sell a house, you decide husband and wife do this. Husband dies. The wife says, look, this is an 8-bedroom house. I don't need to clean this thing anymore. All righty. Sell his house. Let's say for $500,000, buy me a smaller condo. The smaller condo stays in the box. I live in it, and I got another $250,000 from the sale of my house in the box. I'm getting the interest. If I need some of that money, the kids take it out for me, buy me stuff. All right. Now, got this whole thing set up. It's wonderful. Mom dies. Pop says, hey, dip into the box, take out 50 grand. Buy me a ticket on the Queen Mary. I want one last hurrah. And the son A says, hey, Pop, you're 87 years old, all right? You're getting close to the train ride, end of the train ride here. I'm not giving you the money. No, but it's my money. You always gave it to me. Yeah, but I want something there when I inherit it. I don't want you spending it all on these cruises. Oh, really? So what does dad say to his son A? Close your eyes. What do you see? Half of nothing is nothing, because your share just went to the Salvation Army. When you do these boxes, you keep the right to change the beneficiaries. You know what, A? You're out of the trust. Goodbye. All right. Now Pop goes to B and says, hey, B, See what I just did to A? And B says, take it easy, Pop. Calm down. I'll give you the 50 grand for the cruise, and I'll give you 50 grand spending money because I want to stay in the box. It's worth it. And when Pop dies, all this property goes to the kids. Same as there's no probate under a will, and it's private. Nobody gets involved other than the people in this trust. And by the way, although this trust, it says it's irrevocable, here in New York, you could revoke an irrevocable trust. That was one of the questions on my elder law final. In New York, true or false, you can revoke an irrevocable trust. Answer is true. As long as S, the kids, they're also the trustees. As long as they're all alive, they can all agree to revoke the trust as long as everybody's competent and they're adults.
Well, wait a minute, you wouldn't want to revoke the trust if somebody hadn't kind of gotten annoyed, so how are they gonna agree with it if they're voting on it?
You want to run that by me again? It's so difficult with the masks.
I know, it's ridiculous, I'm sorry, what I was saying was, okay, so if one person's not cooperating with giving you the money, and they are the ones who have to vote on a decision about whether the money comes.
Nobody votes.
Oh,
You either give me the money or you don't, or I'm going to the next person and you're out. If the next person says, I'm not giving you the money, you're out, I'm going to the next person. Eventually, somebody will give you the money, otherwise they're all out. And I'm leaving everything in that box to the Salvation Army.
so as long as you're aware, you can change.
You can change the beneficiaries and you can change the trustees, so they're also the kids. So, but you just can't stick your hand in a box.
Right, you have to go through people, unfortunately.
We've had situations, the whole thing is all set up. Pop complains to his daughter, I don't have any money to spend. I want to go down to Atlantic City. All right. She dips into the box. She gives him $1,000. And there's got to be like $500,000 in there. All right. Once she dips into the box for 1 penny for the old man, it's all gone. Medicaid says you voided the whole trust. Now it's on you. All right. So you don't want to dip into the box and give the money back. You can buy things for them. I'd like to buy a new car. Great. Dip into the box, take out 50 grand, go buy me a Lincoln or a Mercedes.
Does that car have to be in the kid's name then?
Yeah, it's in their name. It's not my name.
Yeah, 'cause
By the way, under Medicaid,
Sure.
you can have a vehicle. You can have a vehicle as an exempt asset under Medicaid. Of course, you're in a nursing home, it's not going anywhere. I mean, a Maserati's a vehicle, Lamborghini's a vehicle. So, you know, it's a generic term. It's like spouse. But that's how the irrevocable trust works. It's the gold standard for protecting property ahead of time. It's flexible. You can have access to the money. You can revoke it if you need to. Let's say that Pop does this, you know, and then 2 years down the road, he needs Medicaid. Well, he didn't make the 5 years. He's got another 3 years to go. So let's say one of these kids is disabled. The trust gets revoked, and we use the disabled child to pass the property through. It's like playing chess. You're never out of moves, okay? Type of thing. So that's what we do as far as the estate planning goes. That's for most middle-class people. People are coming in and you're reading about it more. People are coming in and doing it more. And that's really the gold standard. Pardon me?
How much does it cost to set up one of those?
Oh, the truth. All right. The documents, those 4 documents, will, durable power of attorney, healthcare product, they run anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500. Okay, that's a fee range in there. Depending on, sometimes the lady's 87 years old, she's got no money, she needs documents, we'll do it. All right. For the trust, we'll run about $5 to $6 grand. All right, to do the trust and the 4 documents.
And is that state specific?
Yeah, the trust you can pretty much take anywhere.
Oh, you said that.
Yeah, trust you can pretty much take anywhere. Florida does, by the way, this is irrevocable. What about a revocable trust, one you can revoke? Okay,
Well, this you can too, though.
well, no, a revocable trust. People say, what about revocable? A revocable trust is only good if you die. All right, it avoids probate. But the revocable trust, does nothing to protect your property in a long-term care situation because you're the trustee of your own revocable trust. You can dip in, all right? Stick your hand in the box. So Medicaid says, wait a minute, if you can get your hands on the money, you know what? Revoke the revocable trust, your trust, and now you're going to pay privately. So a lot of people that create that revocable trust, they're sitting around 10, 20 years, they're waiting to croak, only they don't die. They wind up needing long-term care in a nursing home, and that trust did absolutely nothing to protect that money, but this kind of trust did. But this scared them away. All right, that's what happened.
Well, first, all your assets have to go to other people. You have to put other people's names on them. Like all your bank accounts has to have other people's names on it.
Yeah, you can do that.
IRA has to have their names on
A
it.
beneficiary, right? IRAs have beneficiaries.
Right. So you
And by the way, another part of estate planning, contingent beneficiaries. All right,
I listen, wills, like if I were to die and I had a will, is that public information?
oh, here's what happens. Okay, first of all,
Yeah, that could get me in trouble.
I get this question all the time. I heard through the grapevine, my mother drew up a new will. I want to know what's in it. Sorry, you can't. It's private. But once you die, and if you didn't do the right estate planning, and now you have to probate that will, now it becomes a public record. Now we know how famous people, Jerry Garcia, a bunch of them, once their wills get filed, they'll be in the New York Post, you know, because the Post goes down and find out who they left their property, David Bowie. And then you get people like Aretha Franklin, who die with zillions and have no will. Prince had no will. And he still had 300,000, 300 million worth of songs he hadn't recorded yet. So for the, he could have. A lot of them have trust.
It's like me, there's nothing, like, right now, I'm floating, this is like, I need to anchor somewhere, this is ridiculous.
All right. So
How could you die with no will?
He didn't have one.
Yeah, like, I don't have a will, you don't know who to leave it to, you're just like.
you know what this is? This is around to it. I never got around to it.
I know, but if you don't have a will and you die, doesn't the state take it? Goes to
Well,
probate?
It goes through the chain.
The chart.
Go through that
It's
chain.
your
Yes,
spouse, and then the parents, and then the
It's just a little
children,
bit too much
and
guidance,
then
a lot of
the
nieces and
siblings.
nephews, and then the state.
Yeah.
All right. So very important.
It's fascinating. I watch a lot of Judge Judy, so I'm
Oh,
like,
I can't watch it, she's so nasty.
I know.
I like her.
Well, food for thought. That's pretty much it.